Welcome back to our daily Bible study. I'm Matthew Gage, pastor at Faith Baptist Church in Decatur, Texas. We are in chapter number 40 of the book of Genesis, chapter number 40, and we're going to deal with an event or two. I don't know if you'd classify this as two or one, but anyway, some things that happened to Joseph while he was in the prison in Egypt, and regarding the interpretation of a couple of dreams. And this will set up his eventual freedom from the jail and his promotion into Pharaoh's court that we will get into in the next chapter. So we're kind of transitioning and explaining how he's going to get out of prison. So I almost feel bad. I feel like I'm kind of spoiling the story a little bit there and talking ahead of myself, but I'm assuming this is a passage that everyone will be quite familiar with in this story. So let's just jump right on in, Genesis chapter number 40. And it came to pass after these things that the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker had offended their lord, the king of Egypt. And Pharaoh was wroth against two of his officers, against the chief of the butlers and the chief of the bakers. And he put them in ward in the house of the captain of the guard, into the prison, the place where Joseph was bound. And the captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and he served them, and they continued a season in ward. So in the course of events, as Joseph has been a prisoner in prison and now is the deputy jailer, in a sense there, they get two new prisoners. Who are these two prisoners? Well, they're people from the court of Pharaoh. Now, who these people are exactly and what they did, I really not very sure on that, just other than the kind of surmising from their names what they are. Egyptian history is very difficult because there's so many eras and dynasties and things you can look into, and the way Pharaoh's court may have operated in one era is not the same as the other. There's a lot of similarities, but these aren't necessarily like things like when we deal like with Roman history. And okay, well, a quaestor, this is what he always does, and this is usually what a consul and a proconsul do, those kind of things. These aren't necessarily those type of positions that are long-standing in the Egyptian culture, as far as I understand. Not a lot of emphasis is usually given to what they did. But anyway, we can talk a little bit about it. One, chief of butlers, so something that has to do with the household, probably running the actual household. And the one thing it talks about him doing is actually serving the food and drink to the Pharaoh. And then the chief of the bakers, probably something to do there with preparing food, something of a cook. Now, if I was reading between the lines and you wanted me to come up with, my theory on what's going on here, I think that something happened, maybe an attempt on the life of Pharaoh, one of those like poisoning attempts or something like that. And it was just unclear if it was the person who prepared the food or the person who served the food. And that these two men were cast into jail, and one of them may be innocent, one of them not. And just in the process of an investigation, maybe it comes out. That's my theory. I can't really base it a whole lot on here, but if I wanted to kind of paint a background story to put all this together, that's what I would say is going on. But I'll be honest, I'm not going to go out on a limb to defend that by any stretch. That's just kind of my mind filling in the gaps in the story. But nonetheless, the butler and the baker are now in prison with Joseph. In verse number 5. And they, that's the butler and baker, they dreamed a dream, both of them, each man his dream in one night, each man according to the interpretation of his dream, the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt, which were bound in the prison. And Joseph came in unto them in the morning and looked upon them, and behold, they were sad. So as they both had these dreams and they're trying to figure out what do these dreams mean, Joseph comes in to care for them, to deliver the breakfast, I guess, and notices, how troubled they are. Verse 7. And he asked Pharaoh's officers that were with him in the ward of his Lord's house, saying, Wherefore look ye so sadly today? And they said unto him, We have dreamed a dream, and there is no interpreter of it. And Joseph said unto them, Do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me them, I pray you. And Joseph, of course, had some history with dreams. He had a couple of dreams when he was a young man. And this is, I think, his faith in God, saying, well, God's blessed me. God continues to take care of me, and God will reveal this thing. I see echoes of this in the book of Daniel, how Daniel interprets, I keep saying that word like that, interprets the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar. So Joseph said, hey, tell me, God can give us the answer. I like that too, by the way, from the very beginning. Joseph saying, oh, I can tell you the answer. They say, oh, God can do this. God can tell you what the dream means. Verse 9, and the chief butler told this dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me, and in the vine were 3 branches, and it was as though it budded, and her blossoms shot forth, and the clusters thereof brought forth ripe grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. So first up, we have the chief butler, who, like I say, I think his role is serving, is, maybe something of a, I'll think of some of the English TV shows and stuff. My wife likes watching a valet. He's a manservant to the Pharaoh, taking care of his needs and things. And similar thing, by the way, we see Nehemiah doing, serving the royalty and being the cupbearer. So it sounds like part of his role was delivering the food and probably tasting it. It was, all those things going in to prevent the Pharaoh from being poisoned, and this was a highly trusted position. So in this dream, though, he dreams about this grapevine and how it has 3 branches, and he reaches out and squeezes those grapes into wine, puts them in a cup, and takes that wine and gives it to the Pharaoh. So there's the dream. Now, on the surface, I don't know why in the world that would bother you and you'd be sad, a strange dream, but in those days, and maybe it was just the vividness of it, they woke up from it, and it was just so real that it really troubled them. Verse 12, and Joseph said unto him, this is the interpretation of it. The 3 branches are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee into thy place, and thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand after the former manner when thou wast his butler. So Joseph says, okay, 3 branches, 3 days, 3 days time. You're getting your old job back. You're getting out of here. You'll be back serving Pharaoh just like you were before. Verse 14. But think on me when it shall be well with thee, and show kindness, I pray thee, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. So he says, okay, here's the interpretation. You're going to get your job back, and hey, by the way, please remember me. Take my case before Pharaoh. I'm innocent. I shouldn't be here. I did you a favor. Do me a favor, and let's see if you can help me get out of here. Verse number 16, and I kind of picture this as the butler tells this, tells his story, and Joseph gives him the good report, that the baker, who's been sad and troubled at his dream, is thinking, whoa, okay, well, maybe this isn't so bad. So, oh, wait, Joseph, wait, hear my dream too. He kind of jumps in here, verse 16. And the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good. He said unto Joseph, I also was in my dream, and behold, I had 3 white baskets on my head. Verse 17, and in the uppermost basket there was all manner of baked meats for Pharaoh, and the birds did eat them out of the basket upon my head. So in his dream, much as ancient custom was, and you still see the people carrying the stuff on top of the head, balancing on top of their head, and he's got these baskets, he's balancing on top of his head, carrying them to Pharaoh, and there's all this stuff, all this food that has been prepared. But as he's going to deliver it to Pharaoh, the birds are coming along and they're pecking at it and stealing away the morsels and, pecking away at the bread and the rolls and everything that the baker had prepared. Verse 18. I think all the joy has left the room at this point. You know, the butler's been thrilled, ecstatic at the interpretation of his dream. Joseph was excited to tell him the good news and the prospect maybe of getting out of prison. And then the baker was all excited, thinking he's going to get a good interpretation. Verse 18, though, Joseph's got bad news for him. And Joseph answered and said, "This is the interpretation thereof. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Yet within 3 days shall Pharaoh lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee." Now, I'll point out that in prophecy, in Bible prophecy, anytime you see birds, I'm not going to say 100% of the time, but almost all the time, birds are picturing evil. So the having the birds there is a sign of evil. And then he further interprets it that they would hang him, he would be hung, and that his body basically left to rot. The birds would, vultures and buzzards and things would be there, feasting on his body while it was hanging in the tree. So here we have the 2 dreams. And we have these 2 paths for these 2 individuals. Very, very different paths that would be. The one is getting restored back to his place of honor. The other is about to be executed. Verse 20. And it came to pass the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, that he made a feast unto all his servants, and he lifted up the head of the chief butler and of the chief baker among his servants. So he brings them back in. I can imagine him kind of this royal gala thing come up, and got his people, brings these 2 people in. And verse 21, he restored the chief butler unto his butlership again. And hey, here you go. You have your old job back. I trust him. Like I say, I told you before, my kind of picture story that I have going on in the background, I think, his name may have been cleared. Find out, he is trustworthy. He wasn't in on whatever the plot was to kill Pharaoh. And so he's restored. And it says he gave the cup unto Pharaoh's hand. That's honor, but also a place of trust. There's a lot of things to it. And also intimacy. That's important to also note there that he's right there next to Pharaoh. Verse 22, but he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to them. But everything comes true just as Joseph had revealed to them, that God had revealed to Joseph. Joseph revealed to them. Let's put that in there. I don't want to give Joseph all the credit. God is the one who set this up, and God is the one that delivered the interpretation. So chief baker is hung and is executed. Verse 23, yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forgat him. So in the middle of all this, Joseph had, implored him, saying, please, when you're restored to your position, remember me, remember my case, and help me. Tell Pharaoh about me, in my situation. Remember how I helped you. Do me a favor. But when he gets in this position, he's just excited to be back, or relieved at, his turn of fortune. And what does he do? He forgets what Joseph did. It's very, very sad. Very human, I'll point that out. But it's a very sad affair in that he forgets. So time marches on. Joseph is probably thinking, hey, the butler and the baker just left. I heard they hung the baker. The butler's restored. And any day now, they're going to come get me. Any day, Pharaoh's men are going to come. Yet days turn into weeks, turn into months, and time marches on. And we still have Joseph in the prison. So we will end that, done with the chapter number 40. So we will get into the kind of the rest of the story and get Pharaoh or get Joseph out of prison in the next chapter, in chapter 41. But anyway, that's it for chapter number 40. I appreciate you watching. I hope it's been a help and a blessing to you.